Hello friends, welcome to my channel Sushant. Today we are at the next topic, that is first steps in planning. We are at the second lesson of this topic. Previously we discussed how to win a pawn-up position. Today we have got a very interesting case here. This is the position from a very famous game. Boris Spassky is white and Bobby Fischer is black. Both were the world champions. This game was before Bobby Fischer became world champion. At first look, we can say that the material balance is there. The bishop seems somewhat better, but the book says white is winning in this position. First, let us try to understand why the book says white is winning. See, this position is not a tactical one or what we say like a study position, like bishop d5 traps the knight and white wins. It's not that, because king f6, king e5 will drive this bishop away. The knight can come from c4 or c6. But generally a bishop is superior over a knight in three cases. One, when there are pawns on both the sides, the pawns should not be fixed. Secondly, when the knight is not well placed, the knight is not centrally placed here. Even if the knight is centrally placed and it cannot stabilize itself, there will be problems. Secondly, if there are passers on the opposite side and there is a race of pawn case, then the bishop becomes extremely powerful because it is able to aid its own passer and stop the enemy pass pawn at the same time from same place. The knight on the other hand either has to help his own passer or stop the enemy pass pawn. That is why whenever there are outside passers and there is race of pawn situation, the bishop becomes extremely powerful. Here white starts with the first move, h4. Good move by white. He fixes the g pawn. Now the g pawn can't go to g5 very easily. And if the king tries to attack the bishop, then we see that g6 would be attacked. So bishop and the pawn, they try to be on the opposing colors and they try to control both the here white and the black squares by bishop and pawn. Let's see what happens. Black improves his knight, knight c4. White goes ke2, trying to centralize his king, knight e5, ke3. Now white wants kf4 followed by kg5, then we will see that the knight and king both would be paralyzed. So black goes king f6, kf4, and now knight f7. First trap by black. Now if white plays the untimely g4, then we will see that black has the move g5 check, and after the trade of pawns hg and g5, the knight blocks the g pawn firmly. And we will notice that the game is heading towards a draw now, because what will happen eventually after some time, c pawn would get traded for the g pawn and only the rook's pawn would be left. So most of the king and pawn end games, even if white manages to take the pawn on a7, the black king only have to reach c7 and the game would be drawn. So this is, I think, totally a wrong approach by white to play g4 here. Of course, Spassky avoided that. He went ke3. Now the king is heading to d3 c4. Well, we may ask what would happen if knight e5 is played again, trying to repeat. Either white can waste move with g3 or he can move the bishop away to c2 and wait. Idea ke4, kd5. So this is the power of the bishop over a knight. See, generally what happens if we have this kind of scenario, then the bishop can give a check or bishop can waste moves and force the king to choose one of the sides. And then what happens? Our king would penetrate from the other. Let's say if the position is like this, white would play g4 h5 and push his passer. If he goes this side, then we can see easily the king enters d5. This is what the bishop's power is over a knight. So if this has to be avoided, black decided to go with the move g5. The trade on the pawn square g5 would favor black as we discussed, but white goes h5, and now we see one of the piece, knight or the king, would be tied down to the defense of h pawn, and white's bishop and king would play against the remaining piece. So if knight tries to control here, bishop and knight would try to play this side. If the knight sits on h6 and king goes to d6, then bishop and king try to fight out against the lone black king. So black is going to suffer here because both his pieces will not be able to participate. Black goes nh6, just waiting. kd3, king is heading to c4, ke5, temporarily stopping the move, kc4, bishop just moves away, keeping eye on the E4, D5 and the C6 squares. The reason for controlling these two squares is when white goes KC4, we will note that black will have the only move KD6, and this is how the bishop acts nicely against the pawn which is on the opposing color. What happens is, we will see that after the position KC4, KD6, white will put black in a zugzwang. See, the knight will have only G8, H6, and then the white king would penetrate from the other side. The problem would be that the king will not move because the c pawn would be lost, and knight will have to only move G8 and H6, which can also be blocked. We will come to that position soon. Black goes KD6, KC4, G4. Black just waits. He would like to put the pawn on G3. White goes A4, gaining space on the queen side before taking his king from B5 to A6. NG8, A5, NH6, bishop E4. White is just waiting. This is the final stage of conversion. Now the king is heading to B5 and A6, and this bishop would wait on this diagonal, trying to stop the control of the C2 square where the black pawn wants to promote. G3, KB5, and here again black has to be very careful. If he instantly goes KE5, then bishop just drops back to B1, and this king is now even far away from C7. So simply KA6, KA7 will be there, and after KB7 or KB8 the white pawn promotes. So this is basically white's idea. So black just waits, NG8, and now BB1 before going king A6. Knight H6, KA6, KC6. Now the king wants to come to B5 and maybe try to harass the bishop. White now plays the very strong bishop A2. This move now seals the fate of the black knight also, along with the king. Now the point is that, see what white is aiming. Black, see, knight G8 square is guarded, but black can do knight G4 and H6, right? But what white will do is, he will take A7, force the black king on C7, because otherwise KB8, A6, A7 queens. So king has to remain on C7. The bishop is guarding the advance of the pawn, the C4 square is guarded, and the same bishop would block this, trap this knight also. We will see how. Here see, black chose to resign because he understood it's game over. Let's say after the move knight G4, bishop C4, knight H6, king takes A7, KC7, and here white has the very strong bishop E6. This would be the actual zugzwang. See, the knight is trapped, knight cannot move, the c pawn cannot move, it would be lost. The king is compelled to leave the c6 and the c7 squares. The point is very simple. See, if you go instantly kc6, then a6, kc7, and here again white can wait with bd5. The bishop can waste the moves. And if instant kd6, then white can play a6, kb7 or kb6. All the three are very good. He can go kb6 also, a6 also, perhaps kb6 is slightly better, ke6, kb6, c4, a7, c3, a8 queen, and when c2 is not possible because of both qc8 and qa2 check, when the c2 pawn would be lost. So white would win the game very easy. So without too much analysis, I tried to conclude the game, not making it very complex, but such examples should be played over the board time and again to understand the intricate points. I hope you will like the lesson. Do let me know in the comments below. Thanks for your time.